welcome to my channel. She came to Fort Briarstone with no past anyone could trace, just a promise and a single bullet etched for the one that counts. Mocked as a joke, Isla Weber silenced them all with one impossible shot that only a legend, Raven 6, had ever pulled off. But behind her precision lies a secret born on a battlefield no one survived, and a legacy the military tried to erase. Will her story remain buried in classified files, or become the ghost that saves lives when no one else can? I didn't come to Fort Briarstone to make friends or turn heads. I came because of a promise. They mocked me the first day. Let her have a go, just for laughs. One young sniper snickered as he shoved the biggest, heaviest rifle into my hands. The Barrett M95, a brutal, bolt-action beast that punished even seasoned shooters. I didn't flinch, just knelt, checked the scope, let the wind dance across the red thread I tied to a matchstick, and squeezed the trigger. The steel target at 2,000 meters rang out with a single, sharp clang. Bullseye. The range went quiet, eerily quiet. A few jaws dropped. One instructor stood up, so fast his chair skidded. That shot. Only Raven 6 ever pulled that off. Everyone turned to stare. That was the day the joke stopped, and the day the questions began. My name's Isla Weber, 27, born and raised in a quiet corner of Switzerland. I've got long brown hair I tie back with surgical precision, and a frame most folks overlook. But I've got eyes that miss nothing. Always have. I was the new ghost at Fort Briarstone's Advanced Marksman program, the supposed top of the top. Funny thing is, no one could figure out where I came from. My transfer file was thin. No sniper school. No combat ribbons. Just prior service, classified assignments. That's all it said. Just that. I kept to myself. Didn't join the mess hall crowd. Didn't chit-chat during downtime. And most importantly, I never took a single practice shot during the first 3 weeks. Not one. That made me an easy target. You sure you didn't mean to sign up for the medical corps? Ethan Blackwood laughed one day. Tall, smug, former Marine, treated the range like a comedy club. That rifle break your shoulder. Better try the air rifle, sweetheart. The group roared. I didn't blink. Instead of gadgets, I carried an old-school wind reader, a stick with red thread. No Kestrel, no laser rangefinder, just thread and instinct. When someone asked why, I said, machines lie. Wind doesn't. That just made them laugh harder. Then came the long-range trial, a brutal 2.6-kilometer live-fire course with shifting winds and elevation distortions. Even the instructors whispered that most wouldn't hit the metal, let alone center mass. One by one, the cocky ones took their shots. Ethan hit the outer ring and puffed his chest like a peacock. Then he looked at me and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Let's save the best for last. Come on, Isla. Give us a show." I could have ignored him. I wanted to. But I felt the weight of the brass casing in my bag. The one I'd carried for 3 years. Hand-etched on the side. For the one that counts. I'd never fired it. Never found a shot that felt right, until now. I held the round in my palm for a moment before loading it. The brass caught the sunlight, and the etched words caught my breath. For the one that counts. The casing was a keepsake. A relic. But more than that, it was a vow. That shot wasn't just practice. It was proof. Of something more than accuracy. I chambered the round, ignoring the whispers around me. My weapon wasn't tricked out like the others. Just an M2010, beaten and worn. No digital recoil systems. No smart optics. Just steel, glass, and memory. The others stared as if I were about to embarrass myself. I didn't care. I crouched low, dropped to one knee, and let the red thread guide me. It fluttered like a whisper in the breeze, fast, then erratic, then steady. I felt the crosswind dancing up from the canyons. 2 minutes passed. Then I adjusted the scope. I could feel their eyes, waiting for me to fail. I slowed my breathing, counted it down. 1 inhale. 1 exhale. Silence. And then, bang. 3 seconds later, the scoring screen pinged. Center mass, said the system in a robotic voice. A perfect bullseye. I didn't look up. Didn't need to. The silence was its own applause. That's not possible, someone murmured. I heard a shuffle. A footstep. Then Master Sergeant Colin Reyes stepped toward the monitor, eyes narrowing. He was a lifer, 30 years in, hard as gravel and twice as mean. He'd seen everything and trusted nothing. That's reverse angle crosswind compensation, he muttered. Grade 4. I only ever saw one shooter pull that off. He didn't say the name. Not at first. But everyone knew. Raven 6. A ghost. A myth from the Mountain Wars. Staff Sergeant Elias Strahl. A man whose records were scrubbed after 2019. No graduation photos. No known students. Just blurry stories passed around during late-night barracks talks. Another instructor, Sergeant Lynn, leaned in and whispered, Raven 6 died in Op Grey Phantom. Took a mortar to the overlook. No one ever found the body. I stood and began dismantling my rifle. Reyes stared. Where did you learn that shot? He asked. I didn't look at him. I saw Raven 6 do it once, I said. Gasps followed. But I was already walking off the line. That evening, the staff ran a full background check. They dug deeper than clearance level should allow. And what they found only made them more confused. No sniper certification. No recon training. Just entries buried under classification. A medic, assigned to non-combat units during the Western Highland conflicts. My name, Isla Weber, appeared in some reports. But only as a support role. Not a shooter. Not someone who could calculate crosswind shifts at 2.6 clicks. But I had been there. Just not the way they thought. Later that night, Reyes found me in the armory. I was seated on the bench, oiling the bolt of my rifle with the care of someone tending to a relic, not a weapon. He didn't barge in. Just stood quietly at the doorway, watching. You weren't trained here, he said finally. I didn't answer. Medical records list you as non-combatant. But I've seen snipers with 10 years and who can't make that shot. So I'll ask again. Where'd you learn it? I wiped the barrel clean and set it aside. Then I reached into my bag and handed him something. A notebook, worn leather cover, water-stained, edges frayed. He opened it slowly. Inside, hand-drawn diagrams. Firing arcs. Wind angles. Altitude math. Each page a masterpiece of battlefield geometry. No words. Just shapes and numbers. The kind of detail you only get from muscle memory, not textbooks. At the bottom of the last page, in fine ink, 5 words curved in a different hand. I owe him my life. Reyes looked at me, eyes unreadable. You were there. I nodded. Operation Grey Phantom. Border Sector 6. March 2019. His face changed. I could see the recognition bloom behind his scowl. That was a disaster, he muttered. Intel failed. Teams were scattered. The overlooked team was declared lost. They were, I said. He sat on the bench beside me, the notebook still in his hands. You saw him die? I stared ahead. No. The word hung in the air. I saw him fight. I saw him hold a ridge alone for 47 minutes, picking targets like he was reading their thoughts. Then a mortar caught his flank, took his leg and half his stomach. Reyes said nothing, just listened. I was on triage duty, back at base. But when radio contact dropped, I ran. No orders. No backup. Just instinct. My voice felt like ash, but I forced the next part out. I found him barely conscious, bleeding out. No evac coming. He knew it. And he looked me in the eye and said, no one else is coming, so I'll give you what matters. I touched the notebook lightly. That, I whispered, was everything he knew. Passed on in 40 minutes of blood and grit and dying breath. Reyes exhaled slowly, then asked, and the round? I opened a small steel box beside me. Inside, an empty casing, the one I fired that morning. He read the engraving aloud. For the one that counts. He gave it to me before I left. I said. I carried it for 3 years. I didn't know when I'd use it. But I knew it wasn't for training. It was for a message. He nodded, closing the notebook. A message received. The next morning, a call came in from military intelligence. They wanted to speak to me. Voluntarily, they said, which was a lie. You don't get a call like that unless someone's already signed off on dragging you in. Reyes made a decision then. She's been transferred, he told them flatly. Location undisclosed. That choice, covering for me, could have cost him his career. But he didn't blink. Because he'd seen the notebook. Seen the shot. And maybe, just maybe, he'd felt something too. That some things don't belong in sealed files or security briefings. They belong out there, passed on. Later that week, Reyes called me to his office. They're going to come back, he warned. People don't like holes in the record. And your file? It's a crater. I nodded. I'm used to being erased. He leaned forward. That man, Raven 6, Elias Strahl, he was more than a myth. I knew him. Trained beside him once before he went off-grid. What he gave you, it's not just technique. It's legacy. And now it's yours. I swallowed hard. I don't want fame. I'm not offering fame, he said. But I am offering something else. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, an official recommendation. My name, listed not as a trainee, but as an instructor. A proposal to establish a covert training unit to preserve tactical precision through unconventional pedagogy. Military language for teach what only you know. I stared at the page. You want me to start a program? He shook his head. I want you to continue one. The one he started the moment he handed you that notebook. I didn't sign. Not yet. Because I still remembered the ridge. The screaming. The way Elias looked at me as I patched him up under fire. You don't let this die, he'd whispered. Not with me. I didn't join the official program. Too many medals, too many spotlights. Raven 6 wouldn't have wanted that. So, I made a counteroffer. I'll teach, I told Reyes. But not under brass. Not for PR. I want real students. Small group. Off-grid. He nodded. Location. Mount Albrecht. Southeast Ridge Line. No eyes. No distractions. Just the shot. And so it began. 6 months later, a silent camp formed under the shadow of forgotten peaks, an unofficial sniper school with no signs, no uniforms, and no bureaucracy. Just 12 students, handpicked from whispers and referrals. Soldiers, scouts, even a combat engineer with one eye and too much experience. Each of them came for different reasons, but they all left the same way, changed. On the first day, I gave them a single instruction. Forget what you know. We didn't start with shooting. We started with silence. Sitting still long enough to hear wind shift. Feel pressure drop. Smell the coming rain. Then came the thread. Red. Cotton. Dangling from a wood stick. They laughed at first. Thought it was some ceremonial relic. It's a compass, I said. But only if you know how to read it. We walked ridgelines. Studied bird flight. Sat in caves to learn how echoes reveal distance. No digital scopes. No rangefinders. Just observation and instinct. Every student received a copy of the notebook, Elias's drawings, diagrams, and silent teachings. Most of them didn't know who he was. That was intentional. I didn't want reverence. I wanted understanding. And at the center of every lesson was one core truth. You shoot not to kill. You shoot to protect. One student, Mara, asked me why we didn't study kill zones. We study escape routes, I told her. We shoot so people can get out. They began to understand. This wasn't about winning battles. It was about altering fate. About being the thread that held someone's chance together when everything else was coming apart. That was what Elias taught me, with blood on his lips and fire at his back. And I was going to make damn sure it didn't die with me. Word about the school spread, not through official channels, but through whispers. A captain from a reconnaissance unit recommended a wounded scout. A radio tech told a demolitions expert. No one advertised. But those who needed it, found it. I called it nothing. It didn't need a name. The students just referred to it as the school, like it was the only one that mattered. Every new arrival got the same lecture. We're not here to build legends. We're here to make sure others live long enough to go home. That's what Elias had believed. That's what saved me. Because it wasn't just his shooting I remembered. It was the way he kept laughing, even while bleeding out. How he calculated my escape route with calm clarity even as the world collapsed around us. How he told me, skill is useless without purpose. I trained them slowly, carefully, pushed them through snowstorms and drought, not to break them, but to refine them, to teach them how to move like ghosts, how to breathe with the earth, not over it. We studied ricochet control, shadow drift, sound masking, and then we studied restraint. No shot, I reminded them constantly, is better than the wrong one. In time, they began to get it. The same recruits who once scoffed at my red thread now tied their own. They etched their scopes with wind values instead of names. They started shooting fewer rounds, not because they couldn't hit, but because they understood when not to. Some of them returned to the field. Others stayed to help teach. None ever asked for credit. And each year, on the anniversary of Operation Grey Phantom, I made a quiet hike to Ridge 47, the same overlook where Elias fell. I carried no wreath, just the notebook. I'd sit in the cold and whisper, "It's still alive. You're still alive." And the wind always answered. 3 years into running the school, I received a visitor I never expected. He arrived on foot, dusty boots, worn duffel over his shoulder, and the posture of someone used to carrying more than weight. "Name's Adrian Strahl," he said, voice low. "I think you knew my brother." I felt the world pause. "Adrian, Elias's younger brother. I've been trying to find you since the operation," he continued. "All we were told was that he died a hero. No details. No burial. Just gone." I nodded, heart tight. "They never told us what happened on that ridge," he said. "But I know someone stayed. Someone kept him alive long enough to pass something on. Someone who carried what he gave and turned it into this." He looked around, at the shooting platforms, the weathered students practicing wind calculations with nothing but instinct, the sound of silence honed to precision. "I just wanted to say thank you," he added, "for making sure his name didn't die in redacted files." I didn't speak, just reached into my bag and handed him the original notebook. The real one. The one with blood still staining the cover. Adrian opened it slowly, reverently, tracing the sketches with his fingers. Then he reached into his own pack and produced something wrapped in soft cloth. A compass. Old. Worn. Military issue, brass and leather. "Our father gave it to him on his first deployment," Adrian said. "Elias carried it on every op. I think he'd want you to have it now." My hands trembled slightly as I took it. "So you always know where true north is," Adrian added quietly. "Even when everything else lies." It was the only time I let a student see me cry. After Adrian left, the compass became part of my gear, not for navigation, but for grounding. I kept it tucked into my pack, near the red thread, the diagrams, and the casing from the shot that changed everything. That season, we took on our hardest cycle yet, recruits fresh from active zones, all carrying ghosts they didn't talk about. They came expecting drills and shooting scores. What they got instead were long silences, impossible terrain hikes, and questions they couldn't always answer. "Why do you shoot?" They all had textbook replies at first: to neutralize threats, protect assets, complete missions. But I pushed harder. "Why you?" Eventually, the masks cracked. One said, "Because someone once covered my retreat." Another whispered, "Because my brother didn't make it out." One shook his head, eyes full of something older than war, and said, "Because I couldn't save them all." That's when I knew they were ready. I taught them how to fire from unstable platforms, how to feel pressure changes without barometers, how to shoot through brush, smoke, rain, and grief. They learned that distance isn't the hardest part of sniping. It's stillness. Not in the body, in the mind. We trained in silence. We trained with purpose. And always, we trained to save, not to glorify. Every round fired was logged by hand. Every calculation was made twice. Once on paper, once in the gut. We didn't rely on tech. We relied on presence. We didn't just train shooters. We trained guardians. The stories from the outside world kept coming. About shots made in impossible conditions, lives saved in ambushes, entire units extracted because of unseen cover fire. The official channels didn't name our school, but they always named one thing: unknown sniper. Techniques similar to Raven 6. That was enough. One day, a documentary crew tried to find us. They'd heard rumors about a rogue sniper camp up in the southeast mountains where trainees emerged with impossible skill sets. They offered money, recognition, said they could honor the legacy. I turned them away at the ridgeline. "You don't film ghosts," I told them. "You live by what they left behind." They didn't understand, but the students did. We kept the school small, never more than 12. Each new candidate was vetted not for talent, but for purpose. The interview was always the same. What would you do if your shot could save someone you'd never meet? The ones who answered with numbers, I turned away. The ones who answered with names, I welcomed. On the 5th anniversary of Raven 6's last stand, I returned to Ridge 47. This time, I didn't go alone. 5 of my earliest students came with me, uninvited but not unexpected. We stood in the wind and placed a stone where he'd last been seen, engraved not with his real name, but with the one that mattered. Raven 6 gave everything so others could live. None of us spoke, but one student reached into her coat and placed a bullet at the base of the marker. A simple casing, etched with 5 words. "Because you showed us how." That was the moment I realized it wasn't just about preserving skill anymore. It was about passing on the philosophy behind it. Don't shoot for war. Shoot for rescue. For refuge. For the chance that someone else makes it home. We walked down the ridge in silence. Below us, the wind carried the story forward. And somewhere beyond, I swear, I heard him say, "You did good, kid." It's been 7 years now. The school still stands. No signs, no official backing, just a clearing in the trees, a line of wind-beaten targets, and a red thread dancing on a stick. We've trained over 80 now. Some returned to combat. Some became instructors elsewhere. A few left the service entirely, but all of them, every last one, remembered why they were taught. They don't post about it. They don't brag. They just carry it forward. Every now and then, a whisper reaches me. A mission saved by a round no one saw fired. A unit pulled back from the brink because an unseen shooter dismantled an ambush with surgical grace. They never signed those shots. But I know where they learned it. One evening, a handwritten letter arrived. No address, no signature, just 5 words. "You kept him alive. Thank you." Inside, there was a photo. Black and white, blurry, a ridgeline, a tiny figure with a rifle. Dated, March 2019. I still keep it in my locker. Because some people don't get statues. They don't get parades. They don't even get graves. But they live in the shots we make when no one else can. In the breath we steady so another life can keep breathing. In the promise that what they gave won't disappear. Elias Stroll, Raven 6, was never supposed to be remembered. But I remember. And if you've ever carried someone else's knowledge after they were gone, if you've honored a teacher by passing on what they gave you, then you understand this story. You are the story. Because legacy doesn't shout. It whispers. Through thread and steel, wind and silence, in moments when the world looks impossible, and a single shot makes it right again.